Okay, greetings everyone. Welcome to Electronic Imaging. My name is Michael McGuire and I will be your instructor for this course. I'm super excited to be teaching this course again. Photoshop is one of my favorite pieces of software. It is an absolutely amazing, robust image editing software, and I can't wait to share with you some of the advanced features. But before we do that, we need to learn a little bit about the fundamentals of Photoshop. So let's start by opening up Photoshop here. Now, what I want to do is I want to put these at the default settings just so that we're looking at the same kind of workspace. So in order to do that, I would hold down Shift, Option, and then click on Photoshop. You'll notice a window pops up. Delete the Adobe Photoshop settings file. I will click Yes. And it's going to open up Photoshop in sort of the default layout. In order to put some images into Photoshop, I can either drag and drop here, or I can select and navigate to an area where my files are at. I click Open. Now, the interface is divided into, I'd say, 4 areas. You have the menu bar up here. You've got the options bar, which is just below it. The tool panel, which is this right here. And then the panels area, which is all of this here. With panels, they are accessible via these little arrows. So we can expand the panel or hide the panel. We can also configure these panels in different ways. So let's say that I want to float the panel. I can pull it out and have it as its own separate window, or I can join it together with other panels. So over here to the left, we've got the tools bar, and this is the tools panel. Within these tools here, you'll notice that if you hover over the tool itself, what appears are these little shortcuts and these little video demonstrations. And this is something that when you're learning Photoshop, you may want to keep on because it's a really easy way to visually understand what the tool does. If you would like to turn that off, you can come up here to your Preferences, General Tools, and then you want to turn this off. It's Rich Tooltips. Show Tooltips, I'll keep that on because that just creates a little pop-up like there. That shows you what the name of the tool is. So this is the Quick Selection tool. Something you'll also notice that with each one of these you have a associated keystroke, and it tells you what that is. So this is the crop tool, C for crop tool. And going back to the menu, you also have the short keys in the menus. So if I want to do a search, that's Command F. If I want to open and close or create a new document, that's Command O or Command N. So the Tools panel is divided into groups. Here you have the first few tools are selection tools. Then you've got painting tools, painting and editing tools, and then you have at the bottom here foreground and background color. And then you've got viewing tools. Now if you click on viewing tools here, what it does is it changes how much of the image appears on the screen. So if I want to just solo the image, I can click this again and it will toggle through. This is telling me in order to get out of this full screen mode, I have to press Escape. If I press Escape, it comes out of that full screen mode. And the shortcut for this is F. I can see that from the tooltip. And this is what I use quite a bit. I very rarely go to these the toolbar for something like this. So to open a file, that's done here in the menu, open. You can also drag and drop files directly onto the Photoshop icon or directly into a window, and that will create its own layer. Zooming in is done with this tool here. In Photoshop, there are like 20 different ways of doing the same thing, and this is an example of one. So this is the zoom tool, and it's Z is the shortcut. If I click on an area, it zooms in. If I click Option, hold down Option and click, then it zooms out. You'll notice up here under the Tool Options bar that you also have these features. You can go 100%, fit screen, or full screen. Now going back to the Tool Options bar here, you'll notice that as I'm clicking these various tools that the tool options change. Well, they're dependent on whatever tool is selected. So if your tool option maybe looks different than mine, it's probably because you have a different tool selected. So another way that we can zoom is down here. We can type in the amount of zoom we want, let's say 120%. And then there's also keystrokes. The keystrokes I use the most, and Command plus and minus will zoom in and out. Command 0 will fit to screen. Okay, with each tool, you also have what's known as a contextual menu. So here, for example, if we select the crop tool and we right-click, it gives us several different options. And you'll notice that these options are the same options that you have in the option bar here. So here I can right-click and select 5x7, or I can come up here into the option bar and do the same thing. Again, many different ways in Photoshop of doing the exact same thing. So let's look at the history panel. Right now we can't see the history panel. Whenever you can't see a panel, you want to come up here to Window. This is where all the panels live. The ones that are checked are visible. Right now we're not seeing the history panel, so let's go ahead and check that. Okay, so the history panel records your actions. So if I come over here and let's say I create a marquee, and then I'll paint an area, you can see all of these actions are recorded. And the advantage of this is that if I need to undo things at multiple stages, I can use this panel and just go backwards. The status area, that's this right here. This is the status bar. If I click this little triangle, it gives me some information about the file and various types of information. So let's say I want to look at the document size. That's what it's set to right now. And I can see that this file is 1.29 megs. If I want to look at the pixel dimensions, I can click that. That's the status area. The navigator panel, let's go ahead and open up that. Navigator panel is very handy, especially when let's say you're zoomed into an area, maybe I'm retouching some of her skin here. Rather than zoom out in order to get to a different part, I can use this right here. Another way I can do this is by using the hand tool. That's this right here. I click on the hand tool and it allows me, I'll just collapse that. It allows me to go to other areas of the image. Now with any of these tools, you always have access to the hand tool. It's very handy to have access to the hand tool. If I click if I hold down the space bar, you'll notice I have the crop tool selected right now, but if I hold down the space bar, it turns into the hand tool. Same thing if I have the brush selected. I'm doing some painting and I can click the space bar to move to different areas of the image. Command Z to undo. You should be familiar with that by now. Okay. There's also the color panels. There's multiple ways of selecting color. If we go to Window and bring up the color panel, this is what that is. I can select colors here, and you'll notice that as I do this, it's changing. If I'm clicking these different areas, it's creating also swatches. You can see that here in the swatch panel. When I click on an area, it also adds this as a color to my foreground color. Another way of doing this, if I click the foreground color here, this brings up the color picker. I can also here select the color that I want. If I know the RGB values or the CMYK values, I can input those here. This also takes the hex values. And the advantage of the color picker, when I hover off of the color picker, it turns into the eyedropper tool, which is this right here. The eyedropper tool allows me to take a sample of an area, and then it takes that color and embeds it into the foreground color. I can do the same with the background color. Let's say I want to select this color green. I click OK, and it's now put that color into the background color area. Okay, just want to go over very briefly some of the basic tools that we'll be using. This is the Move tool. Move tool is used for moving around layers. And this is the layers panel right here. You'll be living in the layers panel. This is this is used for just about everything in Photoshop. What I've done here is I've created an additional layer. Part of what makes Photoshop so powerful is the ability to do something on a layer and to be able to manipulate it, turn it on and off. So let's say I'm gonna paint this area in there. Notice it still has the skin tone selected that I sampled before. And if I want to turn that on and off, I can. Let's say I want to move the whole thing. I would come up here to the Move tool and move it just like that. Marquee tool. Let's say that I want to just float this one piece. I can use the Marquee tool to select this area. And then I will do a Command J, which will create a new layer, and it will create a new layer of just that piece that I had selected with the Marquee tool. With layers, you can turn on and off the visibility of the layer. You can also change the hierarchy of the layers. This is the topmost layer. You can also change the opacity of the layers. So let's come over here and we'll change the opacity. We'll just drop this down to 30%. And you can see here it has changed the opacity. Okay, so that's the layers panel. Another selection tool we have is the lasso tool. This is good for like freehand, quick stuff. And within the lasso tool, you have several versions of the lasso tool. This is the crop tool right here. Let's say that I want to crop this image to, let's say, a 5:7. I can come here 5:7, and it will allow me to do that. When I want to apply a tool, you'll notice that there's a check mark up here. I click that and that will apply. Okay. The eyedropper tool, that is again used for sampling a color. So let's go to this other image. You'll notice that I've got 3 images loaded here and they're all in different tabs. So if I click on this other image, let's say that I want the color of the sand here. I want to sample that, and maybe that's going to be the color of my logo. If I click on that, it loads it into the foreground color. Rubber stamp tool, or sorry, the clone stamp tool, that will create an exact copy of an area. So if I select the area that I want to sample, it will allow me to paint in that area, and it will make an exact duplicate. The gradient tool, that's used for creating gradients. The eraser tool, let me create another layer and show you kind of how this works. I'll turn off my background layer. The eraser tool is not my favorite tool. It's good for doing down and dirty kind of quick Photoshop things, but it's a very destructive tool. But let's say that I need to just isolate this part of the image and I want to delete everything else, so I can just literally erase everything else around there. There are much better ways of doing this. I would avoid using the eraser tool. I really can't think of a reason to use this tool except in the very, very beginning. This is the dodge and burn. Dodging and burning you do if you want to lighten or darken part of the image. So here I want to maybe lighten up. There's not a lot of detail here to lighten up, but maybe I'm creating a little halo around this person. That's done with the dodge tool. Or if I want to darken an area, if I pull that out, that's the burn tool. So let's say I want to make the sand darker here. I can do that with the burn tool. Pen tool, this tool you want to master. This is a super powerful tool. It is what I use for many of my selections. It's very precise. You can create a lot of different anchor points. You should be somewhat familiar with the pen tool from Illustrator if you've used that program. It allows me to just create very precise selections or paths that I can turn into selections. Okay. The text tool, that's here. And it allows me to add text. You'll notice that it's adding in that color of the sand that I picked. From here, I can right-click and bring up some contextual menus, or I can come up here also and change some of the characteristics of the text. There's also the character panel here. If I go to character panel, character, I can make those changes here. Okay. Last thing, let's talk about the brushes panel here. Now the brushes panel, this allows me to change the brush that I'm painting with. So if I have the brush tool selected and I'm painting, I can change different aspects of the brush. Maybe I want something that's got a harder edge. I can select one of the brushes here, or I can come up here and customize what I want. So let's say I want to do 50% hardness and increase the size of the brush. I can do that here. Okay, so that's the basics of the Photoshop interface. I hope that you found this helpful, and I look forward to joining you in another lecture.